Right. Thank you, Kelsey. Okay, so hi everybody. Ben Sondgeroth back with you again. We're gonna do Google Slides today, as Kelsey said. So yes, it's Google's version of PowerPoint. So we've done Google's version of Word with Docs earlier, and now we're going to do Google's version of PowerPoint with Google Slides. So Slides is one of the more versatile tools, and I'm going to drop a link into the chat there in case anybody wants to be able to see my outline. Oh, the sharing permissions are incorrect on that. Give me 1 second. There we go. Now they're right. Okay. So slides are really a super versatile tool. So the main function that we're going to kind of look at is presenting from them. So I actually have a presentation up that I give at a conference, speaking on presenting social studies in the classroom. So that's what we're gonna be kind of using as our kind of background and kind of our demo tool, if you will, in our presentation today. But it is super helpful to know that you can do a lot more with slides than just present from them. So if you are a teacher, or you're an educator and you want to have your kids do things with Google Slides, like there's lots of activities that are out there, but it is at its core a presentation tool. So I used it a lot when I was teaching, and I use it now in my real job when I'm presenting to people. So it takes the place of PowerPoint. And the reason being, it's easily shared. So it's something that's very shareable and able for people to open up on their own device and have access to different links and resources that they have. I know one of the examples, teaching is presenting, and I would present to my kids and I would lecture and I would use a PowerPoint to lecture. And I would have them open up the PowerPoint that I created on their device. Problem was, it was like their own copy of it. So when I would open it up, they would open it up on their device. And if I made a mistake or I needed to add something, they wouldn't be able to see that change. And so that's a problem because we want to be able to keep things updated, be able to keep them fresh, give everybody the newest version possible when we're presenting information to them, which is what Slides allows us to do. And so it's helpful that Google Slides is that tool that allows us to keep our audience updated with whatever information they need when they are using or when they're viewing our presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in to share my screen with everybody. And we're going to look at Google Slides. So here is the document that I put in the chat. This has got just a couple of different, we're going to run this very similar to what we did with the Google Docs session, where we're just going to look at kind of how to create one. And then the big thing we want to look at is at the end, after we look at some of the fun stuff that we can do with slides, just not utilizing Google Docs. Who put that in there? Google Slides. There we go. I can't type. There we go. And then we're going to look at presenting. So we're going to look at some different ways that we can present our slides as well. So this is kind of just a nice checklist showing like all the different things that we can do with Google Slides. So to access Google Slides, similar to Docs, we can access it a couple of different ways. The way that I like to do is new in Google Drive and then Google Slides here. You can also go to your waffle up in the top right-hand corner of your screen and select Slides, and that will go to, actually this one's docs.google.com/presentation. So the last one was just docs.google.com, and that got you to Google Docs. This one's slightly different if you want to type the URL in, so that's why I don't really suggest it often. But you can see all your different Google slideshows will be there for you to choose from. So that's able to access it through the waffle. Again, I prefer going through Google Drive just so that way everything's organized and in the right appropriate folder. Okay. Similar to Google Docs, if you go to Google Slides and then hover over the arrow, you'll see an option to create one from a template. And so there are several templated Google Slides in this area. Now, I have an education account, and so I get some different ones than maybe what you might see, but you can see here, there's lesson plans, book reports, flashcards, even a student certificate, which you might be thinking like, slideshow? Certificate? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about like how we can kind of change things there. But you can also see down here, wedding, party invitations, all sorts of cool stuff that's already templated out for you that you can use and you can kind of take and mold into your own, which is pretty neat. But what we're going to do is we're just going to create a new one, and we're going to create a blank Google slideshow to kind of start from scratch and see where we take it from here. So when we open up our Google Slides, okay, this is going to be the presentation that we're going to build out. So the first thing that comes up are our themes. And on the right-hand side over here, you're going to see several different default themes that you can choose from. This will give you, your different colors and shapes and text and fonts that are kind of, pre-formatted for you. So if you want to start with a template, something that looks cool, you can just find the one that you like. We all like summer, tropics. We were just talking about vacations. Why not? And if you click on the tropic one, you can see that the theme changes the color here. And then also, if I look at the layout area up at the top, so you see there's the option for layout. This is going to show me that now, because I chose that theme, I'm going to have several different slide types that are already formatted with all of the appropriate colors in that layout option. So I don't have to keep changing the colors and the formatting every single time I add a new slide. If I remove that theme and I went back to just the default here, and I go to add a slide, go to layout, you can see it's just very boring. There's nothing to it. It's just black and white. Nothing fancy about it at all in the layout option. So our themes allow us to have some flavor to our slide deck. So I'll go ahead and select that tropic one because that was kind of cool. Now, the other option, I guess, before I get too carried away with that, say you're making a lot of slides. So you're making several of them over and over and over again, and you want to have the same theme that you used in a previous one. But you don't want to have to either dig in here, or maybe you made it yourself. You can go to this option that says import theme, and this is going to bring up all of your Google presentations, all of your Google slides, and you can find like in here. So this is one for work. So I've got Learning Technology Center like theme for it. So I select that one and hit select. And now it's going to show me the themes that are in there, including this theme. So this is the theme that I use on all of my LTC presentations. So I can say import the theme. And then what that's going to do is it's going to automatically change my theme to whatever that slideshow had as a theme. So that's helpful if you're like making a series of them or you're using multiple of them. Like you can just bring it in. You don't have to worry about trying to copy paste anything. Like it just brings the theme in, and then all the different layouts for that theme also come with it, which is super helpful. So if you're curious about, kind of bringing in a different theme, you can bring in themes from other presentations as well. Okay, so when we're editing a slide, everything comes in depending on the layout of the slide, which is just basically how your slide is structured. So this is a section.
Sorry, there was a question in here. Where was the import?
Oh, okay. Yep, no problem. So when you select theme, it'll be down at the bottom of the theme area. So that will bring up all of your other slideshows in your Google Drive that you can bring in those themes from. Cool. Okay, so some of the stuff in here, layout. One of the things with slides that's nice is that it just, when you have a theme, you're going to have text boxes that are pre-populated in there. They're pre-formatted for you with whatever the theme is. And so it's literally, and it tells you like, click to add text. So we can add text, we can click to add it, we can type in whatever we want to do, and it's going to be formatted like the theme. Well, I know Cheryl was in the last session, so we saw the paintbrush in the Google Docs session. And so we're going to look at why the paintbrush is actually super important in Google Slides. And I would say it's more important in Google Slides than what it is in Google Docs. Okay. So for example, if I have some text and I don't want this to be, I need it to be in more than one text box on this slide. So this is my title. I'm going to add some text. And then I'm going to drag that box over. And then maybe I'm going to go up and I'm going to add a new text box. So I have my menu bar up at the top. So similar to Google Docs, like that's the cool thing about Google Tools. Everything is going to be in a very similar spot. So like when I'm editing text in the text box, I have almost the identical formatting bar up at the top that I did in Google Docs. So if you know where it is in Google Docs, it's going to be there in Google Slides. But the thing that I want to add now is I want to actually add another text box to this slide. So I'll select the text box option on the menu bar, drag it out, but then when I start typing, you'll notice that it's different. Like it's not existing in the same font as what this was, because it just comes in a default font. So it's coming in an Open Sans this time and size 14. So what I want to do here is I want these to match. I don't want to have different fonts and things like that. Like I'm very particular about my presentations because more than me are just going to see these. So what you can do is you can actually click, don't double click, just click on the text box that you want this one to look like. Okay, so I want the second thought to look like my first thought. So I'll select it, and then I have the paint formatting up here. I'll select that and then go back over and now just click the box here, or I could highlight it and go, but I can also just click it. And then now, just like that, it's going to be the exact same. So you don't, that's one of the things that was nice. Like in docs, you had to highlight everything, but in slides, you can just simply click the box that the text is in, and it'll auto adjust the paint formatting to match whatever you want it to match. So I find that to be super helpful in making sure that like everything looks the same as far as formatting goes. And so again, formatting wise, with my fonts up here, you can change your font, you can change your size of your font, bold, italic, underline, even your alignments, your spacing. And then if like on my monitor here, because it's a little bit smaller, I have to hit more, but you might have it spelled out depending on how big your display is. But if you have those 3 dots here, that'll actually show you then the bulleted list, the numbered list, and your indents, and all that. So that's kind of some of the formatting as far as text goes. Very easy to format your text in a Google slideshow, mainly because if you use a theme, it's going to format it for you. So you can, but if you want to change it, you always can. You can always highlight it and then change and adjust colors and stuff like that. So, so that's inserting text. Kind of, you can't always put your text boxes in. That's formatting your text. Very similar to what you're going to do in a Google Doc with that. All right. So some other things as far as like what can we do inside of a Google slideshow? Well, we have more than one slide, so we need to add some more. That's going to come from either if you're clicked in, or no, it's not going to come there. If you're clicked over here in what's called the film strip, okay, so this is the film strip view over here. And the film strip view is going to be where we add more slides. So if I'm clicked over here, I can't add any more slides at the moment. Well, I could, but we're going to just click over here. I'm going to have that little bar highlights. And then I can go up to the plus sign where it says new slide. Now, if I do that, it's going to default to mainly like what's called the title and body slide will probably always default to that when you just click the plus sign. You can see it just did it again. But what we want maybe we want something that's not the title and body. So you can click the little down arrow next to the plus sign, and that's going to give you all of the various layouts to choose from. So if I wanted to put a section header in first, I can select that. And then now I'm going to have a section header in there that I can add. And then if I go to the next slide, I can say, you know what, I really want that title and body now. Put that in. Or, this time we're going to go just with the title slide, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it's in the middle, but maybe I like that formatting. So we can put that in. So this is the film strip over here. This is allowing you to kind of, it looks like the old school film strip where you can kind of click through the different slides to get to the one that you want to do. You can always drag and drop these around to reorder them and put them in order. And that's how we're adding new slides to our Google slideshow. Now, if you have a lot of slides, so we'll go to my presentation here. So my presentation here, I have 41 slides in this presentation that I would do in about an hour to an hour and a half, depending, 45 minutes to an hour. So I've got a lot, and it's like, man, I don't even know where some of this stuff is. Like, where does it exist? So there's another view. So this is called the film strip view, but there's also what's called the outline view down here, a grid view, I'm sorry. And if you select the grid view, so it's at the bottom of your slideshow there, that's going to now put your slides into what PowerPoint actually does, and you can see it. So PowerPoint had this feature long before Google Slides had this feature. And I really like this because now I can kind of go at a more like 30,000 foot view of my presentation, find the slide I want to go to, double click on it, and it'll take me right back to the film strip view. So that's a nice like view, being able to kind of zoom out and see. And speaking of zoom out, down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a plus sign and a minus sign. And if you minus, you'll be able to make a larger view and see more of your slides all at once. And if you're a teacher and you're using Google Slides and you have lots of students in one slideshow, we call that a collaborative slideshow activity, which is super fun, but it can get a little crazy. If you do this, you'll actually see where everybody is currently editing slides, and you'll still see the edits in real time. So if Kelsey was in the slideshow and I saw her on slide 14, her little bubble would pop up right here. And then it would also be editing it. Like I can see it in real time. It's kind of crazy that they can figure out how to do that. But it's neat to keep track of like who's editing what and where at a big zoomed out view. So yeah, I really like that. I agree, Cheryl. I really like this view a lot. So, and if you want, like you said, you can zoom back in, double click on that slide, and you can go back to editing it. So again, something that's really cool as far as like, making sure that you're able to kind of see the big picture when you're creating your slideshow. And I should say this too, if you go to zoom out, you can drag and drop your slides around. So if you're like really looking at the big picture and you're like, oh, that slide doesn't make any sense there, like you can drag and reorder. You can also, if you hold shift down and click, you can highlight more than one, and this actually might be better off done on this side so we can see more. So I can say, you know what, I want to move this whole maps section. So we'll just hold shift down and click. And as you're clicking, you're highlighting more than one. And then you can drag and move them all at once. So that gives you the option to move more than one slide, and it's a lot easier. You can still do that in the film strip view, but it's not as like convenient to see where you're actually placing it, especially if you have a lot of slides selected. So again, super helpful to be able to like zoom out, see that from a bigger view, click, move, drag, reorganize your slides in your slide deck. All right. Oh, look at that. I didn't title it anything. All right. So that's some of the stuff as far as like formatting, editing, things like that. But let's look at one of the things that's really cool about Google Slides is it allows us to do some things that we can't do inside of Google Docs as far as like putting information in. And one of those things involves what can we add and insert into our slide deck or into our slide. So in the insert menu up in the top, we can do more than just add text. Okay, we can put in images. So this is the same image adder that you have, or image menu that you have in Google Docs. It's the same one that you have in Google Drawings. Like it exists in pretty much all of the Google tools. You can upload it from a computer, again, search the web, look at your Google Drive, or take a selfie with your camera on your Chromebook or your MacBook or your PC, whatever device you're using. And you can drop those in, or from Google Photos. So I can bring a picture in. That's pretty cool. But one of the things that I do enjoy doing is that from your upload from computer, you can bring in, let's see, I gotta find one here. GIFs. So you can bring in GIFs, and you can put animated GIFs into your slides, and they will play even in your presentations. So if you wanted to make your slideshows fun and have animated GIFs in there, you can add animated GIFs into your slideshows, and they'll just continue to run. Now, funny story, as I like to drop these little anecdotes in, I shared a presentation with a group of teachers. One teacher who was not very tech savvy was having a little trouble getting to the presentation. Finally, she got there. She was about one slide behind my talk at the time, and I had an animated GIF in there. And all of a sudden, in the middle of my talk, she just screams out, "Ah! My computer's possessed!" I was like, what is going on? Now, this lady had been a bit of trouble in the beginning, so I knew something was something was probably okay. And I go over there, and it was just an animated GIF, and she just thought her computer was like running on its own doing something. And I was like, no, that's just a GIF. It's supposed to do that. It's like a movie that doesn't, stop. I don't know, but that was kind of funny. But yeah, she literally screamed out loud, and I was like, oh, what happened? I was just talking about Google. People are screaming. So, but you can add your animated GIFs in there into your slides. So super fun. So along with images, you can bring those in. Some other things you can bring in. So you can actually bring in audio files as well. So you can insert audio into your Google Slides. Now this process is not a super easy one. You have to have the audio file downloaded and then you have to have your audio file, I should say, just in your Google Drive. So if you don't have an audio file in Google Drive, you can't bring it into the presentation. So you have to make sure you download it first, upload it to Google Drive, and then go back and watch our Google Drive session on making sure the permissions on the audio file, and this is a little confusing, but the permissions on the audio file have to be anyone with a link can view, even though they would really be listening to it. But you have to change the link to anyone with the link can view, and then you can bring it into your presentation for your viewers to listen to it. Again, complex, not ideal, but it is what it is. See, you can bring it up. Here are all three of my audio files. I can select it. It creates the audio. It drops it in this nice little button. And then my viewer could click on that.
So I've lived in this crazy world of ed tech since my second year.
And they can listen to you talk if you want to. So it's it is nice, but it's just a process to get the audio in. It's not a super clean one yet. I'm hopeful that they'll add some sort of audio recorder embedded in the future, but as of right now, they haven't done it yet. The next thing that is really nice is you can add videos in here. Okay, so you can go to Insert Video, and you can drop YouTube video. You can add YouTube videos or videos that you have saved to your Google Drive inside of your Google slideshow. Okay, so with YouTube, you can just do a quick search. So we can search for one of my favorite YouTube channels, Crash Course with John Green. So we'll go Crash Course US History. We'll talk, sure, we're going to study the Great Depression. I can select that video. And then now the video comes into the slides. And then my viewer can click on that.
Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course US History.
And watch the video that's embedded in the slides. Now, when you go into present mode, you also, if you click on, oops, I did not want to go to YouTube. Let's just click on this. We'll go to Format Options. As long as you have it highlighted, you go to Format Options. You have some options for the playback on this too. So if you're doing a presentation and you want the video to be a part of the presentation, you can click on your options here to say play on click, play automatically, or play manually. So the difference between those is going to be if it's play on click and I go to present and I go to the next slide here, I can just click anywhere.
Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash.
And the video will play. So I don't have to actually click on the video itself. I just click anywhere in the slide and the video will play. But if I go to play automatically, now, when I go to the next slide.
Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course US.
I don't have to do anything. The video will just automatically play when I get to that particular slide. Okay, and then the last one is play manually, and I'm not going to do it a third time, but you can imagine what this one is. Play manual, that means I actually have to click on the video to get it to play. Okay, so I have to click the play button on the video in order for it to play. The other thing that's really cool about this is you can also start and end the video at the time that makes sense for you. So if you don't want 14 minutes of John Green, you can say, I want it to start at 3 minutes and end at 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And so we'll do the play manual. Why not? We'll have some fun with it. So I'll close that out. We'll go into the present mode here. And now when I hit play on this,
Stockbroker, obviously. So what did actually cause the depression? Well, that's a big question, and it's one that economists...
That's it. I only got 5 seconds of it because that's all I told it to watch. So that's, helpful if you're just trying to show like a little clip in your presentation of a YouTube video. You don't have to know how to edit it or download it or anything like that. You can just tell it in format options what you want it to do. So really a cool way to bring kind of video into your presentations and make them come to life a little bit. So lots of things that we can bring in. There's also down here some things that are in the insert menu that are also on your menu bar. So you have a whole host of shapes that you can bring in. The thing about the shapes and the call outs, any of these, if I bring in, like I say, a call out and I bring it across, I can actually double click in that and start typing. So I don't have to worry about like layering a text box on top of that. I can just double click on it and start typing inside of that call out. That also goes for shapes too. So if I wanted to have something like we'll do a call out, we'll do a star. So we'll do a star, we'll double click in the middle, great job. And then I can highlight that, make it bigger, center it, change the font, change the color of the text. That looks not very good together. Maybe that one. I don't love that color for that star either. There we go. And then you can also take the little spinny guy up here, rotate your star, and then you can move it around. And now I have a star. And I didn't have to know how to layer text boxes on top of a star or anything like that. You just, anytime you put a shape into Google Doc or into Google Slides, you can just double click on it and you can start editing the text within that confinement of that shape. So that's a pretty cool one. So that's where you get, and this is also where like these shapes and all of those things, you notice in the templates, there was that certificate. So this one's kind of boring, I guess. It didn't have anything super fun in it. But you notice what it looks like though is it's easy for you to go in and change the student name, and it's just one slide. So it's not really a presentation in the traditional sense. But what this is this is sized, if I had to guess, if I go to File and then Page Setup, yep, it's sized at 11 by 8.5, which means it's going to print on standard computer paper. So you can make this and print just this one slide out, and it'll be perfectly sized for standard printer paper. And you can print all of your students' work, certificates out, and you can make them in Google Slides. Now, the key to this is that the traditional size of a slide, the default size, if you go to File, Page Setup, is actually what's called widescreen, 16 by 9. So to change that to a different size, you actually have to go custom, and then you would change it to 8.5 by 11 by 8.5, or if you want it to be vertical, you would do 8.5 by 11. And then it flips it. But as you see here, you have to be careful when you do this that you don't do it after you add a whole bunch of shapes and things to it, because you see what it did to my star. Screwed it up. So the star was formatted for 16 by 9, and since I changed the formatting, it stretched it out to be bigger, because 8.5 by 11 is a bigger a bigger slide than what the smaller 16 by 9 is. So you just have to be aware that that could happen, and then you don't have to go back around and start having to try and resize and reshape all of your stuff that you put in. So do that at the beginning, change your size at the beginning, and then start editing your stuff. Don't do it after. Speaking from experience on that. But changing the pages is pretty cool. This is one thing that changing it to this way, I've seen people make online magazines with this, or newspapers, where they've changed it to literally 8.5 by 11. That would be a traditional size or close to a traditional size magazine or book. And then they have all the same formatting and everything here too. So it does. Good question. So when I go into present mode, it changes it to be that big, long vertical as opposed to kind of the one that fills the whole screen. So that's a really good question, Cheryl, because it does change how it looks, which if you change it to 8.5 by 11 and then you put it in present mode, it kind of looks like you're flipping pages on a book as you go. So it's a cool way that you can put more text on it, change the view of it and stuff like that, which is kind of neat. Let me go back in, change that back. There we go. So yeah, you can see the difference, much different between the two in the present mode. Okay, so lots of good stuff in the insert menu. A couple of other things to be aware of. So you have your shapes. You also have different lines that you can put in. So if you wanted to, decorate with different lines, if you wanted to draw some arrows in your presentation to point to things, you can do that in the line arrow here, or the line area. You just want to make sure you do the down arrow next to it, and then that's going to give you lots of different line options to which you can put in. A couple that are interesting in here, and I'll actually go into this one here. So I'm going to put a box, a border around this text box. So I can click on the text box. And if I want to put a border around it, I'm actually going to go up to the top here. And there's the formatting options. These formatting options here are all going to be for the text box. So I can put a border around it with a different weight. I can also change the color. And I can even fill it with a different color. So that's all for that particular text box. You can also do dashes too. So if you want to get real fancy, you can have a fancy dashed box. So the reason I did that, you can see my star is all jacked up again. There we go. We'll make it back to normal. So the reason I did that is because I want to show you something that's kind of neat about this that can make your slides like look pretty cool. Like you can connect them. Okay. So if you have something you're like doing a flow chart or something like that, where you're wanting one thing to connect to another, or have an arrow connect from one box to another box, or from a box to a star. If you click on the down arrow next to line, you'll see you have elbow connector and curved connector here. And so I'll go curved connector. They do the same thing, except one is curved and the other one has a 90-degree elbow in it. So if I select curved connector and then I just hover, you'll notice when I'm hovering, these purple dots show up on the shapes or on the boxes. And if I click on take my crosshairs and I click on one of those and then draw it across to another purple dot and release, what I've got is now a connector, and that line will always be connected to those two objects in my slideshow. So if I wanted to, have these things connected, but I'm not sure where I want them, I can make that line connected, and then I can just drag and drop them and move them around and have that line always be there. And then the thing that's kind of neat is if I click on the line, I can increase the size of the line, and I can also up here adjust the different line ends. So again, you have to be selected on the line to get this feature, but I can change it to arrows. And now I have an arrow connecting the two things back and forth. So if you want to make like a thing that's like this goes to this, goes to this, goes to this, use the curved or the elbow connectors, and you can do that. You can keep dragging them and moving them. So kind of a neat feature there. Now, if you want to do something like that, but you want it to be a little bit more pre-formatted, I'm going to put a blank slide in to do this one. In the insert menu here, there's also the ability to drop in what are called diagrams. Okay, and if you select diagrams, you'll get a new host of options over here on the right-hand side. Okay, and when you look at it, you can do grids, which are great for like infographics, and they're going to have just 3 levels. So I can select like 5 levels and say, you know what, I'm making an infographic. Oh, that one looks cool. Drop it in, and now I have a grid that I can go in and change all those different text boxes that are already formatted in there for me. Okay, you can also do, though, it's more than just grids. You can see there's hierarchies, which are helpful for like, I don't know, anything that would be, you go up to 5 levels. So like I always have my history brain on. So I think of like royal families, like, tracing back lineage and royal families from, the age of the monarchies in the feudalism system, or Game of Thrones, because I love Game of Thrones. So like you could put that in, like the different families and the hierarchies and stuff like that. So I think that's pretty cool. Timelines, processes, cycles, relationships, all sorts of stuff that you can drop in and have it pre-formatted, so you don't have to worry about, I don't know how to make that look good. let Google do it for you. Let Google make it look good for you. So there's lots of different cool things inside of that you can go through and you can adjust and you can add in to yourself or for yourself. Does anybody have any other questions? I'm gonna pause for just a second. I've been talking for about 30 minutes now. So anybody have any questions about anything? We're gonna get to obviously some presentation stuff here in just a little bit.
No questions are coming up in the chat, but yeah, if you would tell us some more about how we can all do what we need to do for when it comes to sharing those presentations, especially when we have people come to higher ed, we often have people try to log in and they're like, oh, it's just not working. So any suggestions about what they can do if they're trying to log into something?
Sure. So the other thing too, when we get to presentations, this is something that I don't do, but I know lots of people do, and that's add animations in between their slides or bringing things in their presentation. So on a click and stuff like that. I just personally, I don't like that drama, I guess, of like, oh, what's coming next? I just put it all up there and I talk about it. But if you wanted to animate stuff, because that is something that is perfectly viable. So if I wanted in the presentation, I wanted the text box or the title to come in first, then the text box, then the star. So you want to select all of the stuff and then go to up in your bar up the top, animate, or not all of it, but you can go animate. And now, so it's in that bar again, animate, and you can see object animations, title is selected, and then you can pick your animation here. So there's a whole bunch of them that you can do. And I think I got burned out on these when I had high school kids doing this all the time. And so every single presentation I had like spin on it. And then they would, you know, do the next thing and add an animation. And that one would be, you know, definitely like spin again. And then they would do another one and they would add the animation and that one would be spin. And then I would feel like I would get motion sick after watching them all look like that. Okay, so it's not going. Let's do this. So I added those animations in. Now when I do my present mode, oh, it's spinning out. Like, see, woo, and it's just like that burned me out. Like I couldn't handle that anymore. Like I just was tired of those. But you can put your animations in. You can see that there's animations over there. The transitions, slide transitions. So if you want to go like fancy from one slide to another, you're going to just select the slide over here and then go transition here. And then that's going to show you like you can fade the transition in. You can apply it to all the slides. And so now when I go to present, they fade in and out for everyone. So there's my spinorama for that one. So again, just if like that's a PowerPoint thing that I know people are used to. So I want to make sure that everybody does that. All right. So I think I'm in a good spot with like adding different things. I don't think there's anything else that I want to address. Let me just run through a couple of things here.
Are you going to talk about timings at all, just in case you are wanting to do?
Yeah, so that's going to go into like this motion area too. As far as auto times, so I'm trying to remember.
Like an example is at higher ed, we have a PowerPoint that is auto set to flip slides every like 10 seconds or something like that.
Okay, so if you wanted to do that, yes, I'm going to do that. We'll do that at the very end because that's like published to the web. You can get that. You can set it all up and you can just easily share it out. Say, here's the link that's going to auto flip for you. So we can talk about that. Yep. So I think that's pretty much all the stuff I want to add in.
Do you have the ability to record your voice along with it? I know that we have done that on PowerPoint. I don't know if you
No, that's where so there's a way we can do that. So you have to use like that audio insertion to do that. There is an extension, and I can use my work account here to show you that because I have it on my work account. So let me bring up a presentation real quick. We'll do this one. Okay, so there's a Chrome extension, and I'll drop it in the chat because this is an awesome Chrome extension. Like I really like it a lot. It's called Mote, M-O-T-E, for voice notes and feedback. And so this actually makes the process of adding voiceover into your presentation like easy. You get 30 seconds for free, I think, and then you can pay for like up to a minute and a half or something like that per recording. But when you have the Chrome extension and it loads up, it's going to pop up a purple circle right here. And so you do have to go a bit out of the norm for this, but I can do the purple circle. All right, welcome to Google Educator Level 1 certification. Today we are going to talk about Google certification and how you can pass the exam. So what Moat does is it actually does that whole process for you. It like adds it to your Google Drive, like it's slick, like, but it's an extension that people need to add and stuff like that. But it's really cool. Like you see, it made the audio, it added it in. Now this is where we can do what you were talking about. So when it comes up the format options, similar to the video, you can say start playing that audio automatically, and you can even hide the audio or the icon while presenting. And if you wanted to have music playing in the background of this, you don't have to record it. You could upload an MP3, put music behind it, and then you would say stop on slide change. You would turn that off. And then when we publish this to the web and have it auto play and loop, that music will just be looping like throughout the whole time that the slideshow is going. So you want to add that audio in, because now if we look at this and we say play automatically, let's go to present mode. Maybe since it's the first slide, it should just go. All right, welcome to Google Educator Level 1 certification. Today we are going to talk about Google certification. So I think I might have just been like jumping the gun on that. I think I have a little bit of a delay. All right, welcome. Yeah. So that's what you do. So you would have to put that in, add the audio, format the audio, you know, and I did have hide icon on there, but like play automatically and all that. So that's how you would put audio in. So it's a bit of a process. The Moat makes it super easy to record and drop in, way easier than like downloading it, uploading it, all that good stuff. But that's the only way that you can do it right now. Yes, yep. So really cool stuff with the audio features. So let's go to talk something about the presentation mode, since we have 15 minutes left. Okay, so when we're presenting and we want to go in, there's a couple of ways that I like to do this. So like you can just click the present button and that's fine. And that gets you right to it. So then you can just click through, very traditional, all of that stuff. But what I like to show people with Google, what you can do with Google Slides is you can actually go to this down arrow next to the present button, and you can have what's called the presenter view, okay? And so the presenter view, what that does is it actually opens up this little extra box, okay? So this little pop-up window. And this is best used and done when you have a screen that's split. So right now on Zoom, I have one monitor over here, and I have my monitor up over here. And so if I was presenting to a large audience, or even just presenting on Zoom right now, what I would do is take this box and put it on the monitor that you all can't see. Okay, so when I go to a conference, I do this. I bring it up, I put up the presentation on this one, goes on the projector, the other one stays on my monitor that's in front of me. And the reason I do this is because in this presenter view, if I have notes, which I don't have any for this particular slide because I'm pretty well familiar with who I am and what my spiel is, but if I had notes, they would show up here. So I could be presenting and look at my main computer and be like, oh, there's my notes for this particular slide. I also see the next slide, what's coming up. So then I'm like, okay, I'm on this one. This is the next slide that's coming up, which is kind of helpful as well. There's a timer up here that's telling me how long I'm talking. So if I know I only have 30 minutes, it's helping me know what time I have left. So those are all really helpful for presentation. This is the really cool thing that Google does though. It gives you, if you're presenting to a group and you want to have Q&A and you don't have access to a Zoom chat where people can drop those questions in, you can do what's called audience, go to audience tools and start a new Q&A in here. Now the key is, if you're in an account for like education, you're going to have it default to only accept questions from your domain. So you want to check that off and make it be anyone if you're going to be sharing this at a conference or with other people. If it's just students in higher ed, then like it's fine. But if it's with some other people, then you want to make sure you check that to anyone. And what's going to happen is now, if I move this out, you can see there's this thing that says ask a question at slides.app.goo. all that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And I'm going to drop that link in the actual Zoom chat. So that way, Kelsey or Cheryl, if you guys would like to open that up, we can kind of like play along. So you should see this view when you click that link. I am still presenting from this view right now. Okay. So you guys can ask questions. So you just type in like, what is the meaning of life? And submit it. And now that pops up there. You guys should be able to see that on your screen because somebody else asked the question. And then I'm still presenting though. So what's cool about this little pop-up window, remember that's over on this screen that you guys can't see. But I see it on my screen. I say, oh, Ben Sondgeroth has a question. What is the meaning of life? I say, oh, Ben, I see you have a question. You know, and I don't have to like wait for somebody to raise their hand. It's very much just the same as like a Zoom chat, but in real time. I guess not the same because you can't chat back and forth. But, like people can ask questions and then the presenter can see them. And the other thing I love this. So I'm doing a conference and somebody has a question. And I'm like, you know what? Great question. I can click this little present button. I say, well, Ben has a question. What is the meaning of life? Well, Ben, that's a great question. Let's discuss that real quick. Okay, I answered your question. I have no idea. Watch a Monty Python movie and we'll go with it. Hide the question again. Boom. We're back to our normal presentation. So this presenter view is definitely different than what most people present from, but it gives that kind of back channel for your audience to be able to ask questions to you. And there's also, if you noticed, upvote, downvote. And so if lots of people have that question, they can upvote it. And then I see it on mine as, and I don't think it'll do it because I was the one that upvoted it, but if more, and there's not any other questions, but if there was more questions, it would say new top question. Like it brings it up to the top of my screen. So as a presenter, I'm aware that like lots of people have this question when they are doing that. So that's a really cool like option for presenting your content. There. Anybody have any questions on that? I suppose I skipped like how do you get people to it, but I'll get there in just a second. But about that presenter view, like I love it. Like I use it at conferences all the time. Like I would use it with students too, but it didn't exist when I was teaching, unfortunately. So I just use it with teachers. All right. So as far as like getting the presentation out to people, okay, that's where we're going to use the share button here. Okay, so we want to share this and we're going to share it with people and we want to make sure that the link down here in the get link area is set to anyone with the link. So it's going to come up as restricted. When you make a slideshow, if I go back to that first slideshow here, it's going to come up first as restricted. And so only people that I've shared it with specifically are going to be able to access it. So you want to make sure that when you share this out, you go in and you change that to either your domain, if it's just with people that you work with or students or whatever, to anyone with the link. And that's going to open it up to anyone on the internet can have access to it. Okay, so when I do that, I get this link here. And this is the link that is then going to be able to be shared with the people that are going to be viewing my presentation. Okay, so I want to copy that link and then share that out either via email or in a Zoom chat like this if you want to, but that's going to be the easiest way to get it to people. Now, it is a long link. So, we could go into URL shorteners. I don't know, Kelsey, if that's a place we want to go right now. Okay, so there is a service out there that is called Bitly, and that's my go-to URL shortener, okay? So Bitly, and I have to go to another account for that and it's just bit.ly. So bit.ly would get you there. And I guess I could do it here so you can see what the main page looks like. So Bitly is, or you go bit.ly.com, I guess. Bitly is it's one of the only ones that's left. Like Google URL shortener disappeared. I think TinyURL is still around, but I love Bitly and it's free and it's really good, easy to use. So what Bitly does is once you log into Bitly, you can now go into take that link. So you take the long link and you copy it. You go into your bit.ly and you go into your account here, and you can see I can create the account or create the bit.ly. Go in here, it says it right here, paste long URL in. I do that, it automatically edits the link, and you can see title, CCHE presentation, because it knew it like takes the title of the Google Slides that I'm using, puts it in there, puts in and creates this random bit.ly/3x3, EECY. Like it just creates that randomly. So I can copy that and then go back to my presentation and maybe put that right on the title slide. And so then when I open up my presentation, I can say, all right, everybody, I'd like you to go to my bit.ly, please. And that's going to get you to my slides for today. And it's just a quicker way to get there. Now, bit.ly also allows you for free to customize the back half if you want to. So you can change this from 3x, 4y to customize it to something that makes more sense. So for example, in my Google certification workshop, I customize it to be bit.ly/LTC Google Level 1. And that's all somebody has to type in to get to my slides. So you can customize that back half to match whatever you're talking about. Now it has to be unique, nobody else, like it's a URL, so nobody else has to have already come up with that bit.ly before you. So you might have to get a little creative with it, but bit.ly is amazing for that. And then one of the really awesome things about bit.ly, even though we're not on a bit.ly presentation, but it is cool, you can see that over here, it's tracking the statistics of how many people actually clicked your link. So I don't know how I feel about all these that are 0, but like there's 25 people that clicked that bit.ly or typed that bit.ly in. 139 people opened that one up. So like it gives you the stats on the number of clicks, and then also shows like how they got there, or like nothing's happened recently because this is one I didn't use, and I haven't used it since January of last year. And so it wouldn't show up here, but you can go back in time and find it and all that stuff too. So bit.ly is super helpful for creating like shortened URLs to get long presentations out to people. The key is no matter if you use a bit.ly or not, you have to make sure your permissions are set correctly to anyone with the link can view it. And this is another really important one. In this area here, you want to use this link when you're creating your bit.ly. Use the one from the share menu here. This is different than this link up here. This link up here is tied directly to whatever slide you're viewing at that moment. So speaking from experience, I've done this where I've got done with a presentation and I've been on the last slide, and then I've gone up, clicked this, copied it, gone to bit.ly, pasted it in, and then put the bit.ly on the main slide. I was presenting in front of like 90 people, and I looked out into the crowd and everybody was on the last slide. I was like, why is everybody at the end of my presentation? Like I'm on the first slide. And then I was like, oh, because that's the link you gave them, was to the last slide. So lesson learned, only took one time. Go to share, go to the link, copy this link. It'll always take them to the beginning of the presentation. So very important to just take this link here inside of the share menu. And that's the one you should make the bit.ly out of. So super important when sharing your permissions out. So in our last couple of minutes here, to get to the question from earlier, can you make this auto play? Absolutely. So one of the ways that I like to do this and make sure it auto plays, you give a link and it'll start automatically going. Okay. What we're going to do is we're actually going to do something called publish this to the web. Okay. And so when I do a file up here, click on file, down at the bottom, I have the option to publish to the web. I guess not quite at the bottom, but close to it. And when I click publish to the web, it's going to give me a different menu for sharing this out. Okay. So what this is going to do is it's going to now publish it to the web, and you can see I can have auto advanced slides for everything from every minute down to every second. Okay, so we'll change it to every 2. And then you can see, I can also say start the slideshow as soon as the player loads, and then restart the slideshow after the last slide. And if I have those 2 checked, it's just going to auto loop. the slideshow will continuously auto loop. And if I have that audio in there, that's like start audio as soon as you start playing, the audio will start. If I have YouTube videos in there, it'll loop and it'll play the video and then it'll go. Like, so you can put all of that in, and then you want to make sure you click publish. Now the difference is you'll see you get a link after you do that, and this link is going to be different than the share link. Okay, so this link is unique here because when I do this and I copy that link, I go to a new tab and I paste it in, it automatically goes to the slideshow. And you can see it's auto playing every 2 seconds. A little fast to be able to read what's on the slides, but you can adjust that. You can do it every second, every 30 seconds, all that. You can see it's just continuously going, and there's no way for me to get like back to it. Like I can pause it though, like your viewer would be able to pause it. Like I just paused it, or I can pause it down here. Like you can see down here where it's autoplay. So your viewer could go down and like change the settings if they're like, oh, this is going way too fast. Like I'm not picking this up, but it won't change anything on your end. Like your default settings will still be there. So the next person that opens it up would have it on autoplay. So you could take this link and put it into a bit.ly and share that out with people. And then people will be like bit.ly/... and then it'll just launch the presentation for them. So that's how you do it, where you launch it. At least that's the way I like to do it, where it just launches automatically, plays it. You don't see the difference would be like when you go to that URL, you notice it goes right into the slideshow. You don't see the film strip over there. Versus if I went to this URL and I shared this with people, then it goes to, I guess I'll go to a different profile so that way it doesn't have access to that. Student Ben doesn't. When Student Ben would open that one up, they would get the view only view of this. So they would see all the film strip over here. They would have to click present in order to go into it and let it play. So if you wanted to do the view where it's auto playing, you definitely want to, go to publish to the web and have it do that. So that is one way that you can do that. And I think I got through everything that I wanted to do. So I made it. And at 6:15, Kelsey, is this a record? I finished on time. I got through all of my list for the first time ever in an hour exactly. How about it?
Exactly. Well, wonderful job. I encourage people to hang out just a second or two if you have last minute questions. Otherwise, we are just so glad to have had you come back, Ben. And as I mentioned in the last session, if you start applying the knowledge and you're like, you know what, I have follow-up questions, or now I've jumped a level in what I know, so now I use things a little differently. Those are a great time to bring back to us your new questions, or Ben can do a level 2 for those experts of us that develop out of this. So thank you so much. Any questions?